Borston was an accomplished historian, a former Librarian of Congress. He saw very clearly that there is a significant link between print culture and the foundations of American political life, a link too many people ignore. He wrote The Image in 1962, 48 years ago, with a growing worry about the direction of American culture. At the time, it was an important book, but it's even more important to reread it today. Listen to the first few sentences. You'll find this very interesting. I quote, "In this book, I describe the world of our making, how we Americans have used our wealth, our literacy, our technology, and our progress to create the thicket of unreality that stands between us and the facts of life. I recount historical forces which have given us unprecedented opportunity to deceive ourselves and to befog our experience. Of course, American success has provided the landscape and has given us the resources and opportunity for this feat of national self-hypnosis. But each of us, individually, provides the market and the demand for the illusions which flood our experience. We want and we believe these illusions because we suffer from extravagant expectations. We expect too much of the world. Our expectations are extravagant in the precise dictionary sense of the word, going beyond the limits of reason or moderation. They are excessive." End of quote. Now, to put this in another way, our success as a nation made us greedy. Then greed made us stupid about who we are, what we deserve, and what we can have, and also blind to the human limits that we can't escape when we're trying to reshape our world. The writer Robert Kaplan once said that America has done so well for so long because her founders had a tragic sense of history. In other words, they had a realistic grasp of human nature as a mix of nobility, weakness, and flaws that need to be constrained. American ideals require a certain kind of citizen to make them work. Or as John Adams said, quote, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." End of quote. A moment ago I said that America is a child of book literacy, critical reasoning, and one other key factor. I think you already know what that last factor is: religious faith. In writing about America at the beginning of the 19th century, Alexis de Tocqueville saw two major features to American life. People were highly literate, and they practiced their Christian faith in a widespread, serious way. Intellect, faith, and citizenship were closely tied. Together, and only because these factors reinforced each other, they made the new republic work. Now, obviously, Americans have always had non-sectarian public institutions. We've never had a nationally established church, and that's a good thing. In principle, our country has always welcomed people of every religion and no religion. But it would be foolish and delusional to deny our nation's Christian roots. The great British historian Paul Johnson once observed, "America was born Protestant." And he said that, quote, "It's important to grasp that American society embraced the principles of voluntarism and tolerance in religious faith and not in a spirit of secularism, but a spirit of piety." America was never imagined, therefore, as a secular state. It might more accurately be described as a moral and ethical society without a state religion. Religiously informed thought and language pervade the American founding. Christian ideas shape most of our political structures and many of our key American documents. The point is this: we can't cut our nation off from those roots today without hurting the rights and liberties we all take for granted. A few months ago, in Ireland, someone asked me for my thoughts about today's post-Christian culture. I said then, and I say again now, that post-Christian society may seem very similar to the pagan world that St. Paul first confronted, but in fact, it's much worse. Why? Because the pagan world had an excuse. We don't. There's really no such thing as a post-Christian era. The redemptive mission of Jesus Christ is unique, unrepeatable, and forever. Christ is the center and meaning of history. There is nothing after Jesus Christ except a void. The modern turning away from Jesus is not a return to the pagan past. It's an apostasy. And when Scripture tells us that Christ will spit the lukewarm out of his mouth, we need to reflect very soberly on what that implies for people who once knew him, but then repudiate him. The early pagans had an alibi in their ignorance. Today's paganism involves a specific choice against Jesus Christ. This is why I found some words of President Obama so interesting on his recent trip to Turkey. You'll remember that the president's supporters stressed his religious credentials pretty hard in courting the Christian vote last year. But in seeking common ground with Turkey, a NATO ally whose own secularist revolution was often brutal and intolerant, the president said, quote, "We do not consider ourselves a Christian nation," end of quote. Now it would be easy and also unfair to take those words out of context. I think some of the president's critics have jumped on his comments inappropriately. The point that the president was trying to make is this: the United States, as he said, has a very large Christian population. But we consider ourselves, he said, a nation of citizens, not a sectarian state. That's obviously true. The trouble is, the president made his remarks at a time when the attitude of our leadership classes towards religion in general and Christianity in particular is very different from the past and much less friendly. Woodrow Wilson, speaking at Denver in a rally in 1911, stressed that, quote, "America was born a Christian nation," end of quote. Franklin Delano Roosevelt described the United States as, quote, "the lasting concord between men and nations founded on the principles of Christianity," end of quote. And Abraham Lincoln, in his March 4th, 1861 inaugural address, stated, quote, "Intelligence, patriotism, Christianity, and a firm reliance on him who has never yet forsaken this favored land are still competent to adjust in the best way all our present difficulty," end of quote. None of these men, all of them our presidents, was evasive or apologetic about saying the simple facts. America was built largely by Christians. Its national consciousness was shaped overwhelmingly by Christian and Christian-influenced thought. President Obama's remark in Turkey was much more tentative than his predecessors. And this is useful because it highlights two serious problems for anyone interested in evangelizing American culture. First, the public witness of many American Christians is softening. Second, some groups are working very vigorously to secularize, or more accurately, de-Christianize our public life and our popular culture.